everybody, and welcome to the 2024 MerMay release from Sweet November Stamps. Today you're going to be engaged in a YouTube hop and a giveaway, so please read the directions below on how you can enter. Today we're going to be using the background builder, the Deep, and our little mini mermaid, Finia. We're going to be using all kinds of aspects of each stamp set. We're going to start by stamping our images. I'm using Express It cardstock for today, and I'm going to use an extra light Desert Storm Memento ink just to keep everything on the lighter side instead of using black. I'm going to stamp out the floor of the ocean there first, and then we're going to stamp out our little Finia mermaid. We're going to start by adding all of that sandy base, and most of the video is going to be sped up quite a bit. So hopefully I can go through all the steps with you. We're starting off with a really light E21 and putting all of our base coat down. And as you can tell, my marker is a little dry, so I need to re-ink this little fella. We're doing all of the upper surfaces first. We're going to now add a little bit of shadow detail with an E31. I'm just trying to map in where there might be any shadows with this marker. And yes, I have forgotten a few places. We will head back to those at some point later on in the video. A few more shadows, just to add a little bit more depth. And then we're going to go into those crevices. We're going to add a really deep, rich E33. And I'm just trying to pick out at random which ones I think are prominent innies or outies. You can decide based on what Amy has told you with her image detail. So we're going to go in and do all of those. We're going to map those out. Now I'm going to come in with an E55, but the E55 is so close to the shade that I used previously that I wasn't 100% liking that all of that detail kind of disappeared. So I'm actually going to go over top of this again because the difference in the two browns is just, it's not stark enough. So we're going in with an E35. Going to map in all of those crevices, whether they be deep or not. Going to map everything in there just with some really easy brush strokes. And there, I forgot those innie parts, so we have to fix that up. And that one too. All right, we're going to add just a little bit more richness with an E11 this time. Has a little bit more of a peachy undertone. So again, we're just adding in a little bit more detail into our ocean bottom. We're going to go into those volcano looking like rock structures, and I'm going to map in a little bit of detail with an E70. This has kind of got a purple grayish undertone to it, so it's almost like putting in the shadows of them in the crooks and crannies of their rocky formations, and I wanted a little bit more detail to show, so we're going in with an E33, and of course it's sand, of course. All right, we're just mapping in a lot of the detail back in, putting a little bit more of the structure back in those little rocks. We're going in with a warm 3, a W3, add a little bit more depth again, and we're going to add some to the stones that are up on that formation there. I'm going to add a little bit of a pink hue with an R01 just to make them stand out against that sandy bottom. We're going to do the greenery in the scene. There's only a few blades of kelp or grasses or whatever you would like to call them. So I'm making it really easy, just going over with the YG03. This is one of my favorite and most used greens. We're going to add a little bit more shadowy detail with a YG17. Just going down the edges of that greenery. And then we're going to add some more. This is just to add a little bit more detail into our foreground, and also brings up a little bit more color as well by putting a little bit of green detail in. We still have to go in and do some of the coral yet. And here we go. Coral is going to be mapped in a light YG01. And I'm just doing a quick pass over that. And I forgot a little crevice here. And I'm kind of assuming that that's a little clam over in the corner. Now, because some of these items are so lightly stamped, I'm going to go in with some colored pencils and add that detail back in. So I'm just going around the shapes, excuse me, and adding all of the detail to those coral pieces. And I'm even adding a little bit of hint of green to those volcano looking rock formations. I think it needed a little purple, so I did the same with the leftover pieces that I hadn't done and that little clamshell. Just adding a little bit more of those finer details in. And again, I'm just adding a little bit more purple just to unify my scene. And also a little bit over the green. Next on to Finia. We're going to start with a base coat. Sometimes with skin I don't do this, and we are going to do a base coat today with an E51. We're going to keep her skin tone about medium tone, and we're putting a nice base coat, and this will help with blending. So don't forget her tummy, and there's a little space underneath her arm. We're going to take our darkest brown, an E15 or E15, and I'm going to basically trace out all of her skin. Normally I try to do more of a blended look, but I wanted to kind of make all of her details pop a little bit more, so I traced all of those lighter lines with this dark marker. Like I said, I don't typically do this, so it was an experiment, let me tell you. All right, now we're going to go in and blend. So we're going to take an E34, and I'm going to go over top of all of those dark lines. I'm going to give her a little bit of a bridge on her nose, a little bit of cheek. Going to map in some of her details under her eyes, and then we're going to go into her body. Now that arm comes right from tucked back in her hair, so it's going to be the darkest part. And then her torso, and then her outer arm. Now that we've laid down that medium tone, we need to kind of get rid of those stark lines. So I'm going to go back to my E51, which is what we laid down first, and attempt to blend it out. And I'm not happy with it, but we will come back to that. Sometimes I like to use a light pink, in this case an R21, to add a little bit of warmth to skin. So I don't always necessarily use it just on the cheeks. Sometimes I use it on foreheads, anywhere where I think it needs a little bit of warmth. Now to blend, I decided that I would go back in with an E21, which is a little bit darker than that E51, and go in and add a little bit more blended color this time. So you can go back and experiment. And there's her body. All right, we're going to go into the tail. We're going to start with this really rich YR0, I believe it's 7. Can't see it on my screen there. Sorry about that. And we're going to go down kind of both sides of her tail. We're mapping in the color that is the darkest, and then we're going to go over with our medium tone, which is a Y38 in this case. I'm going over top of those dark edges to help blend, and then our lightest color, which is going to be a Y35. There we go, to blend the highlight of her tail. We're going to take those 3 exact same colors and add details back into her tail. So we use that dark, coming in with our medium tone, and then we're going to come in with that yellowish color to blend out the rest of her fins. There we go. So that helps unify everything as well. And I wanted to go in and blend them just a little bit so that medium tone comes in again. We're going to add a little bit of violet to her bikini top. We're going to come in with a little bit darker shade just to put the detail back in, of VO6, just to put the detail back in. And then we're going to bring that lightest color back just to blend out those harsh lines and add a little bit more kind of natural shadow. Now, going on to the hair. We're going green for this one. So in this case, I'm going to start with my darkest, which is a YG17. And I'm adding in anywhere I think that there's shadow. So I'm trying to make her hair look wavy. So with a wave, you've got a mountain and a valley to a wave. So I'm basically mocking in anywhere in the valleys of those curls. With our medium tone, we're going to help blend everything up until the tops of the curls. So anywhere where there's a valley, we're going to add brush strokes to bring the color up towards the top or the lighted aspect of the curl. Anywhere where there's shadow, like against her face there, I've basically blocked that color out completely, and a lot of the highlight is gone now. Our last and final color was YG01. We're going to go back to the detail fins on the side of her tail. We're just going in with a complementary yellow and a Y17 just to add a little bit of a orangish color coming off of her body into those see-through fins. We're going to do a little snip and cut out both aspects. That's why I did them on one sheet of paper. All right. Now, I do eventually change this background, so my final card is actually going to be blue. To create our interactive aspect, we're going to use a heavy-duty, heat-proof acetate, and we're going to make a wheel of spinning bubbles. So I've cut it out a round piece, and I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to put her, and which means she's going to hide the brad, which makes this rotate. And to find the center of our circle acetate piece, I just cut the same size out of a scrap piece of paper. I found the middle by folding it, cut a hole, and that's going to tell me exactly where the center of my circle is so that I know exactly where to punch the hole for my brad. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to actually emboss in white all the bubbles on that circle. So I'm just going to place them around the edge. I'm going to concentrate them around the edge of our circle because that's the majority of what we're going to see. So I'm going to take all those bubbles from the background builder, the deep, and I'm going to concentrate them there. And we're going to add some anti-static tool just so that the embossing powders try not to stick. Acetate is rather staticky, so you don't always get a great deal of embossing powder fragments stuck, but we try. Use some sticky Versamark ink on those bubble. We're going to add some white detailed embossing powder and give it a little tap to get rid of as many of those stray powder particles as possible. If not, take a fine, clean, dry paintbrush and just give them a quick swipe off. It's not going to be perfect. Acetate always is staticky. I'm going to take that to our heat tool, and this is why that acetate has to be heat proof. You have to be able to use a hot tool on this. So I lost the footage of me actually putting this together, so let me explain. So the first thing I did was I attached my rotating bubbles to this new blue background, and I attached it with my little brad. So I poked a hole and put the brad through and then put the bubbles on. I also added an embossed sentiment to the front before I went any further. Next, I took my seabed panel and I attached it using 3-dimensional foam. And of course, I left a gap where my clear bubbles circle was going to be. So there's no foam tape kind of in this area here, just around the bottom. And that allows this to spin. And then I added my finna onto my card as a last element. So I just added adhesive to her tail and she sits across the bubbles, and there we go. And then all you have to do to make the card work is rotate the bubbles around, and there she is. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial, and I'll see you again soon. Don't forget to check out the comments for the next person on the hop and how you can win our giveaway.